$250,000 for a seat in a space the size of a minivan, crammed with 4 other people for an 8-hour journey to go 12,500 feet or about 2.5 miles below the surface of the ocean? What could possibly go wrong? Hey Wanderers, so before we start this episode, we wanted to put in a quick trigger warning. We will be talking about the Titan sub disaster, and that includes themes of tragedies underwater and death underwater. So if you're triggered by any of that, feel free to click away from this episode, and we'll see you guys next week. Hey Wanderers, welcome back to another Foolish Wanderers podcast, the podcast about anything and everything. So today we're talking about something that very recently happened, and I'm sure the internet's kind of moving past it now because the internet moves like very
quickly.
But we're talking about the Titan sub disaster. I dug a lot into like all the different like warning signs that kind of came up the past like 5 years or more. It goes deep and it's gonna get interesting. How much have you seen of this, Kendra? Have you been like following it or just?
Yeah, I was obsessed with it.
Were you? Okay, good.
Yeah.
Okay, so you'll be able to like toss in a few like hints or
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay. Perfect. All right. So the main tragedy of this event happened on Sunday, this past Sunday for us, June 18th in 2023. Basically, like this multi-million dollar sub went missing with 5 millionaires/billionaires inside of it, and it ended in disaster. So we're going to be going through like the timeline of the disaster, and we're going to go into like the warning signs and the different specs, like specifications of the sub. Yeah. So this journey was supposed to take about like 8 days. So they go out on this.
Wasn't it? It's 8 days.
I believe it was 8 days because I think it took.
I thought it was 8 hours.
So to start off with, like they had, since it's like we'll get into like the difference between a sub and a submersible.
Mm-hmm.
So the Titan sub that we're talking about, this had to be carried on like a big ship basically to get out to where it needed to go, and that alone took 2 days. So you leave from Canada and you go out to the international waters like the Atlantic Ocean, and you're sailing out there for 2 days to get to the spot you need to go.
Okay.
So yeah. So it took a while, but like during this time they were supposed to have all these briefings like what happens if it goes wrong, here's like all the precautions, sign this waiver that's really ominous, all these things that happens, and you're like partying and you're hanging out with different like scientists while you're out there. It's this really nice ship that is carrying this.
It's like the mothership, and then right, and then it's the submersible's like untethered to the mothership, and then the mothership has to be like directly on top of this submersible to talk to it, like communicate to it.
Basically, yeah. And like, so one of the things that people keep pointing out with the sub is that there was no GPS on the sub.
Which is crazy.
It is, but I guess I'm not super familiar with like GPS underwater.
I'm not either, but like this TikToker was using sharks, like sharks that are like tagged, and there's an app that you can just like follow, like Flippy the shark, and Flippy went here today, Flippy went there, Flippy went over here, and like I don't know how deep Flippy gets, but like
yeah, fair enough.
You can have tracking devices. If you can put it on like a shark, you can put it easily on a submarine. I don't think this is like that complicated.
Yeah, at least for like up into like a certain depth. I'm not sure how deep it goes, like you said, but yeah, so like it should have had something, but the sub didn't have any sort of GPS system, which is like the first warning sign in my opinion. Like if you get lost or like off course, like this thing has to be guided so perfectly.
Yes.
And without GPS, that's extremely hard to do.
Mm-hmm.
So like one of the things that people started talking about was like, well, what if they got to the Titanic too early and they hit it or something like that, and that's what caused this disaster. We'll get into some of that stuff, but
I did remember reading that like the guy with the cool name, Stockton Rush, the one that's the that was the head honcho of the whatever was it, Ocean Gate? Dumb name, but that this thing, the submersible, had 7 different ways to resurface if something went wrong. 7 different ways.
Mhm.
So, like, I was like, okay, that's kind of neat, but at the same time, this thing is untethered
Mhm.
and no tracking device. It's crazy to me.
Yeah, it
And
was
then when we get into the engineering side of this gets even more like, what in the world
yeah, it's
was this guy running?
yeah, yeah, I agree. Yeah, so it's like they super planned for this one scenario and then just forgot about every other possible like bad scenario. They just super planned for like, oh, what if we need to come up super quick? But
7
everything else is
different
just
ways, but still,
seven
like,
different ways.
there's 7 different ways.
Yeah. All right. So we start off this timeline on Friday, June 16th in 2023. So the expedition sets off from St. John's, Newfoundland, in Canada. And the expedition consists of 5 different people, including the CEO, as we were talking about, Stockton Rush. He was like the pilot. He was supposed to be guiding this submersible to the Titanic.
He's the guy that, like, if you've seen the CBS Morning clip
Yeah.
interview, he's the weirdo that's like, "This is the game controller."
Yes. Yeah.
It's
That is
him.
him. And
Yep.
we'll get to that video too. Yep. All right. There's also the French explorer Paul Henry. How do you say his name?
French word. I don't
Natalie.
know. I
Look
just
at
know that this guy, that in this Ocean Gate, they always wanted to have like a Titanic expert on each
okay.
of the missions.
Okay. Yeah.
And this guy, I don't know how many times he went down there, but he was friends with James Cameron.
Okay.
And
That's
James Cameron, okay, has a $10 million submarine, and he has been to the Titanic 33 times.
my goodness.
33 times he has been down to the Titanic. And he said, like, he's estimated, like, or guesstimated, that he has been, like, with the Titanic longer than the Titanic's captain ever was.
That's impressive, and that's yeah. But like, imagine going down there 33 times and not having a
Any
major
issues?
issue,
But,
and then
like,
this happens.
I
It's like
know. I think James Cameron is fine because I saw. Because this is funny to do, everybody. Like,
okay,
do like a photo, like split or like comparison of James Cameron's sub, like the interior,
okay.
versus the Ocean Gates submersible thing's interior.
Mhm.
It is completely different. One definitely looks like the Wish.com version. I'll let everybody else decide on which one is the Wish.com.
It's yeah, yeah. This one was very bare bones, and we'll get into like why they chose materials and stuff. But yeah, the Ocean Gate sub was built very differently than like a normal
James Cameron's.
yeah, like a well-built sub that you think like with all the controls and the flashing lights and you have
Like
all these like
James Cameron's.
yeah, like the actual solid mechanical like things that have been figured out for decades, right?
Like James Cameron's.
Go James Cameron. You
Go
got it.
James Cameron, go.
And also this trip included the father and son, British Pakistani businessman Shahzad Dawood and his son Solomon Dawood, which Solomon's the one that everyone's like freaking out about because he was only 19 years old,
Which is
and
super sad.
it is really sad. And there's actually reports of him like days before they left to go on this trip. He was like contemplating if he actually wanted to go. He was like, I don't feel right about this. I'm nervous. I'm scared. And then he was ultimately decided to go because it was Father's Day weekend and he wanted to spend it with his dad,
Yeah.
which is really, really sad.
Yeah.
So, and then the last person on this trip was British businessman and explorer Hamish Harding. And I think
Can you be an explorer still?
he I think what ship was it? I think it was it Bezos' ship that went into outer space? He was on
Oh,
one
we
of the
can get
ships.
into bit. I got a bone to pick with all of these, asshat, businessmen,
Yeah,
tourist things
yeah,
going
I do
to.
too. Yeah.
Yeah, that's in the same zip code as this, the Blue Origin in Virgin Galactic. It's in the same like
Yeah.
zip code as this Ocean Gate, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, this one just ended in disaster. So
Yeah. So,
yeah, but I agree. Yeah, they're all kind of like flashy, showy, like look what I can do with all my money, and then yeah.
but there's the issue that I have. We can get into it now. No, we don't. No,
Do you
we can
want
wait.
to? Okay.
We can wait.
Okay. All right. So then the next day on Saturday, June 17th, Hamish Harding posted on Facebook, quote, due to the worst winter in Newfoundland in 40 years, this mission is likely to be the first and only manned mission to the Titanic in 2023. Weather window had just opened up, and we are going to attempt to dive tomorrow. More expedition updates to follow if weather holds. And this was his last post on Facebook.
He still posted on Facebook?
He was on Facebook, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yep. So I wanted to kind of dive before we get into like more of like the timeline. I wanted to get into what exactly Ocean Gate is. But unfortunately, so I tried to go to the actual website to look, like see their about section.
Did they, like, disable it?
So what was interesting was when I clicked on it, I got to the homepage, right, where it just like pops up like their original thing, and then I started to click the like about or like shop or explorations. Nothing would go anywhere. Like it just kept saying page can't load, page
Yeah.
can't load. I was like, okay.
I would have disabled it if I worked for this company.
Oh, I would too.
They're
But
gonna
then,
get sued.
yes. But then I tried to like refresh the page that I got at first. It's no longer working, at least not for me at this moment. So the entire thing, for at least my access, I don't know about if anybody can access it now, but it is down. So yeah, that is interesting. So instead, I went and found an article from Business Insider that they kind of talked about what Ocean Gate is, and yeah. So here we go. So Ocean Gate was founded in 2009 with a focus on increasing access to the deep ocean through innovation of the next generation of crewed submersibles and launch platforms. So according to the company's website, the private company is based out of Everett, Washington, and had 47 employees as of April, and has raised a total of $36.81 million in funding, according to data from PitchBook. So, like, that's not as much as I thought they would have raised to like put into like a submarine to go this deep, but
Same, yeah.
it's not like a tiny amount, but it's less than I thought it would take.
I don't think that they really used any of this money to put into the submarine.
I think they used like a quarter of it.
I think they've used like you see that 8.1 at the end
yes.
of the. I think they used that.
Okay, that's the
8.1, whatever that means. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So along with the Titanic expedition tour, the company offers weekly research opportunities to explore the ocean and observe marine life. So I don't exactly know if this means like this wouldn't be like using the submarine necessarily. It's more like going on missions to this like different parts of the ocean and just looking at ocean life and exploring, easier things to look at than the Titanic.
Mm-hmm.
So its CEO and founder Stockton Rush, who was identified as one of the passengers, has repeatedly stressed a need for balancing safety measures with risk, and this kind of bit him in the butt because he did not put enough effort into safety measures, and it cost him his life, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so now we're getting into the difference between a submarine and a submersible. So a submarine has enough power to leave port and come back under its own power. So you don't have to have like this ship to carry you out to sea.
The mothership.
The mothership, yeah.
You can
just leave dock and
okay.
you're good. Yeah, so that's what a submarine is. The Ocean Gate Titan was a submersible, so the submersibles have very limited power reserves, so it needs a mothership that can launch it and recover it.
Yes. And that's what was it? The Titan?
Yeah, yep, the Titan.
Why name it the Titan if you're going to the Titanic?
I think that's why they named it, because it was supposed to go to the Titanic like several times, and it had. I think that's why they named it the Titan, because
it had since like 2021 or something.
Yeah, it was like somewhere in there. They'd actually gone, and they've had like 2 or 3 successful missions down to the Titanic and made it back safely. Mm-hmm. This one just wasn't
one of them. Yeah.
Yes. All right, so now we're going to talk about the viral interview aboard the Titan. So this is from last year, I believe, is when they went on this interview. So CBS news reporter David Pogue visited Ocean Gate's operations last year, about 2022. During his voyage, the Titan actually made it to the Titanic wreck and back safely. So I'll link, if you guys want to check out this whole video, I found the full interview and story on it on YouTube, so I'll leave you guys the link in the description so you guys can check it out if you'd like to. But before boarding the sub, Pogue was given a tour of the vessel, during which he commented on its, quote, improvised design. And this included lighting from Camping World and an unofficial PlayStation controller used to drive the submarine. And this controller is actually a Logitech controller. And
I
it's like,
wonder if they sold out, like, on eBay, like, during this whole thing.
oh, you mean just like everyone's buying Logitech
Yeah,
now?
that's sort of like what happens,
Yeah,
something
it
like
could
that,
be.
yeah.
I don't know. To me, it's just weird. Like, why wouldn't you buy for this submarine? Well, first of all, you should have like a cemented like control, not one that's through Bluetooth, in my opinion. When you're controlling this
Yeah, it
like
was battery powered.
battery powered, Bluetooth controlled.
I kept seeing, like,
It's like
memes where, they were like, "Oh, I forgot to spare batteries. Batteries
yes.
died."
Oh man. And like I don't know, to me it's like, well, Logitech's not a bad brand. It's just not like the top of the line, right? Like if you're it works if you're playing games and you're like I don't want to spend however much on an
It was
Xbox
like an
controller.
old computer like, controller too, it did not look
Yeah.
new.
Yeah, it wasn't like the top of the line one, which you think you'd spring for if you're going this route for a multi-million dollar submersible, right?
And also he's getting, like, parts from Camping World.
Yes, the lighting is from Camping World, and it's just
Camping
and it's the way too, like in this interview, he's so nonchalant about it. He's so
Yeah,
proud of it. And it's like in this situation, you should have more concern like how well you built it and not be so like I don't know. It just seemed weird to me like how proud he was that he just pieced it together so like haphazardly almost.
hodgepodged it
It was
like a
weird.
yeah.
This is another quote from Pogue. He said, quote, "It seems like the submersible has some elements of MacGyvery jury-riggedness." He said this during the interview. Rush replied, "I don't know if I would use that description." And then he added that the Ocean Gate worked with Boeing and NASA on the pressure vessel to design it. He said, yeah. And he said, everything else can fail. Your thrusters can go, your lights can go, you're still going to be safe. If those certain things failed, yes, but you cannot count for everything. Like, yeah, I don't know. He just, to me, like in this interview, it just proved to me like how little he either wanted to learn about it or if he just wanted to like throw something out there and be like, I built this thing, right? But not really like go back and make sure it was solid and safe. Like he just kind of wanted to prove that he built it and not like it. I have more like interviews and receipts later too about like previous
About him?
people.
Okay.
Yeah, but the more I learned about it, the more he just kind of like pushed safety to like way back in his
Didn't he
mind.
say something like along I don't know the exact quote, but along the lines if it was like, "It's not safe getting up in the morning," or something like that?
I think so. Yeah, I think I remember hearing that. Yeah.
Yeah, when somebody mentioned safety, he was like, "It's not safe to get up to leave your own house."
Yep. Yeah, and it's like balancing risk with
Yeah.
safety. Yeah.
It's like, well, it's not like the bottom of the ocean has so much pressure, it's like 33 or 35, like, freaking elephants just sitting on you at once or
Yeah.
anything. It's
Yeah.
not like it's that.
No. No. So Progue says that he was nervous before boarding the submersible. Some of the statements on the waiver he was supposed to sign didn't make him feel any better. The waiver stated that, quote, the experimental submersible vessel has not yet been approved or certified by any regulatory body and could result in physical injury, disability, emotional trauma, or death.
Yeah,
So,
so,
right.
like, there was, this I think it was a producer or writer or something from The Simpsons,
Mhm.
and he had gone on this, like, 2 times.
Oh, okay.
And during this whole like few days when they were looking for the Titan, he was
Mhm.
like commenting on his experience, and he's like, "Yeah, there's like three mentions of like you dying on the first page of this waiver."
Yeah, it's like basically it's just covering their bases. Like, you cannot sue us
Yeah,
if you die.
yeah. And
We're
then
like,
he
well,
said he was talking. He's like, "So the first time we went down there, we hit the ocean floor, and we lost connection to the mothership."
oh, I hate that.
So we were just like mindlessly like moving on the ocean floor, like looking for the Titanic. We got connection back to them, but then we only really had like I think it was like a half an hour or something to just look around the Titanic. So we just kind of hit like the highlight reel, right? Like we looked at the anchor and we looked at the stern or whatever, and then we had to pop back up. We had to resurface.
Sure.
Then he said the second time, he's like, that was like everything ran perfectly. Like we saw like all this stuff of the Titanic, like the full tour.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
I just thought it
it's
was interesting that like he said alleged like they lost connectivity just like you know?
I'm
Like,
surprised he went back again.
yeah,
Like,
like any connectivity, like losing, I'd be like, I'd freak out.
I'm like, no, thank you,
Yep.
not again.
Hmm.
And it was something that people keep bringing up too is like supposedly The Simpsons predicted this, which
They say that for everything,
they
but then at
do,
this
yeah.
point, like, it's fun as like a meme and whatnot. But then, like,
Mhm.
it's also kind of like, we did an episode on this, like Baba Yaga. Was it Baba Yaga? Baba
Mhm.
Vanga?
Baba
What's her
Vanga,
name?
yeah.
It's Baba Vanga. Yeah, Baba Yaga's different, but Baba Yaga's a chicken witch person. But
Yeah.
so the Baba Vanga, you know how she like, and like Nostradamus, like with their
Mhm.
predictions, they're sort of, like,
They're
like,
vague. They're
yeah,
vague
they're
enough.
vague enough. Then people can be like,
Mhm. Yeah.
mhm,
Yeah, and the I think it's season 17. I don't know the episode, but it's something like Homer getting stuck at the bottom of the ocean in a little submarine. But that's to me that's not the same as like you can have any show have someone get stuck in a submarine, but this is like very specific. It yeah, it doesn't quite line up as much.
mhm.
Um but yeah, that's something that people keep talking about is The Simpsons predicted it. But they've had so many episodes too. Like
They've
it kind of
had like 30. They've been on air longer than I've been alive.
yeah. So I mean, you gotta run out of ideas
Yeah,
or pick up random things. But yeah. All right. So now we're going to talk about how far down was the Titanic wreck. So the Titanic is located at the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean at the depth of around 4,000 meters or about 13,000 feet. And very few specialized vessels can actually reach that depth. And even like most military subs that we know of are not able to reach that depth safely. So the risk is so insane sending actual people down there.
but James Cameron did it
Oh, go James Cameron.
33 times.
Go James Cameron. You're beating the odds.
Oh my
Good for
goodness.
you. All right. So back to the timeline for a little bit. So on Sunday, June 18th, and this is like when I first heard about this, and I think most of the world first heard about this thing happening. Um, so around 4 a.m. Eastern Time, this is when the submersible was originally planned to start its descent. But the descent didn't start until 4 hours later. So it was like pushed off 4 hours, I think, because like weather or something.
Mhm,
So around 8 a.m., the Titan submersible started what would be a 2-hour descent to the Titanic wreck.
mhm,
And around 9:45, communications between the Titan and the surface vessel were lost. So it was about an hour and 45 minutes in.
yep,
And then around 3 p.m., the submersible was scheduled to return to the surface, but it never showed up. And then around 5:40 p.m., the Coast Guard received a report about an overdue or missing submersible in the Canadian research vessel, the Polar Prince. So the Polar Prince is like their mothership. That's the name of it. So they waited for it to come up and it never did. And could you imagine the sinking feeling of like
well, shouldn't they have been trying to make connection with this thing, like, the entire time, like, as soon
I
as it
think they
went
were.
dead? 'Cause otherwise it can't steer without it.
Yeah, I think they were.
It
Um
sends, like, text messages back
yeah,
and
it
forth to
does.
each other, so that's
Yeah,
the way that this thing is able to maneuver. It's absolutely insane.
it's insane.
Text messages.
It's just like you can't have a GPS, but you can have text messages. I
Yeah.
don't know. It's
But
just the yeah.
yeah, this the whole you gotta watch the interview with this Stockton Rush because like they literally like the only button in this thing, this like tube of death, it looks like an MRI machine. It's like
Yeah,
a
it does.
round tube, is this like elevator button.
Yep, it's
And this is the
literally an
only
elevator
button. He's
button.
like, this is all you need. And it's just like an elevator button that he like stole from like a Radisson or something, or like a Holiday Inn Express, and he just jammed it into the wall. And there's like one window in this stupid thing, and it's at the end by the toilet. Like there's a little like toilet, right? So like, oh yeah, you can like, poop while you look at the Titanic through this
They have
teeny little window.
it's like the most luxurious poop you're ever gonna take in your life.
I could think of so many better poops, like for to take them than that. That's like
A quarter of a
stressful.
million dollar poop.
Stressful. So yeah,
Yeah.
2000, whatever, 250. I'm so poor I can't even say that number. It's so high. $250,000 a ticket. Yeah,
Mhm.
Jesus. Okay,
It's
yep.
nuts.
So this thing is missing.
Yep.
It's, yeah,
Yep. So now it's missing
I remember
officially.
seeing. I remember hearing like them announcing it like on Monday. But
Okay.
that's when I remember, like, seeing it, like, on
Sure.
Google, like,
Yeah.
the Google News feed. I was like, "What?" I thought it was, like a like an expedition, like a for, like, science,
Oh, sure. Yeah.
educational, not like
Mhm.
some dingbats that are, like, billionaires, millionaires get to, like, be like, "Oh, I saw that movie with Leonardo DiCaprio and, Rose.
Yep.
Oh, I wanna go there," and then just they get to go there as, like, a little,
A field
like,
trip.
we get to go to Disney World and Disneyland and wait in the lines and whatever like this, and then they get to
Mhm.
go on a field trip to the Titanic. Yeah, so
Yeah. Yeah, I saw a TikTok of a girl, she, like, kinda broke it down just, like, how little this amount of money means to like, this level of, like, wealth.
mhm,
She kinda broke it down basically to say that, like, to us, like, getting, like, $7 coffee or from a coffee shop, whatever, it's like getting that. So, like, going on this trip is, like, as much money to them as us getting, like, a $7 coffee.
and it's unique because it's an experience that not a lot of people can afford to ever do,
Mhm. Yeah.
and not a lot of people have been down there. More people have been in space
Mhm.
than, like, at the bottom of the ocean.
That's just how dangerous and how little we
Yes.
truly know about the ocean.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
That's what
insane.
I remember, like, somebody, I think some, I don't know who it was, person in the Coast Guard, an engineer, something like this, on Twitter was like, he's like, they're doomed. He's like, if they didn't,
Mhm.
like, explode, like, implode
Mhm.
automatically, which I think they did, he's like, they're at the bottom of the ocean stranded. They probably are gonna freeze to death,
Mhm.
and we will not be able to save them because more people have been to space than at the bottom of the ocean.
And that was a thing too that people even, like, on the news, like, a couple days, like, into the search for 'em was like, even if you find them, how are you supposed to get them out? Because by the time you get down there, it takes, like, 2 hours,
To
and then
ascend,
takes 2 hours to
properly,
ascend.
right?
Yeah.
And then also the another thing about this death trap MRI machine tube thing is that it is bolted from the outside.
Yes. That's
So
the other stupid thing.
that's the other thing. So then if you, like, resurfaced, right? And you were
Mhm.
just stranded, like, on the top of the ocean, just, like,
S float.
floating, you can't get out.
You can't get oxygen, like, you can't leave,
Ugh.
which is to me, like, when I heard that, I was like, "How?" Because even if you do manage to get back up to the surface, unless they find you, you
Mm,
still can't get more oxygen.
yep.
Like, yeah,
That's
it's so dumb.
I think this is why everyone with this story was really popular because everybody
Mhm.
was like, "This is nightmare fuel.
Yeah,
This is the
it's
worst case scenario,
mhm.
being trapped in a tight place with, like, just knowing, like, as the hours go by and the more you breathe in and breathe out, like, the closer to death you are."
Mhm.
And then, people were like, "Well, I wonder if they're like some people are gonna, you know, kill each other."
I wondered that too, yeah, like,
Yeah.
yeah. It,
Somebody yeah, someone broke it down, like, really dark, where they were like, maybe the he's like, "So even if there's, like, a few dead bodies on board," he's like, "dead bodies still absorb oxygen."
oh, I didn't realize that,
Yeah,
okay.
he's like, he's like, "You would still have so if you killed everybody on board, you would and they would still the bodies would be, like, rotting and, like, toxins
Mhm.
would be coming out, but they would still be absorbing oxygen, and you might have a little bit more oxygen, but you don't." So, yeah, the whole scenario was just crazy, and everyone was like, "What in the world?"
Yeah, and I think they said there's, like, 96 hours of backup
Yeah.
oxygen,
Yep.
which is interesting to me because they're like they thought ahead enough to have extra oxygen,
Mhm.
but not to bring blankets or food or water.
Don't they have, like, water and snacks on board or no?
They had, like, snacks, but they didn't have, like, emergency snacks.
Okay.
They
'Cause,
had
like
just, like, enough for, like, a day, I'm pretty sure.
'Cause I remember this is really eerie, but that, the French fella, the French
Mhm,
Titanic expert that was down there, he had
mhm.
been interviewed about, like, that he was involved with this ocean gate before,
Okay.
and they had even asked, they're like, "What happens if you get trapped down there?" He's
Mhm.
like, "Well," he's like, "It'll like." we'll freeze to death before we run out of air. He's like, it's so cold down there. So he's like, well, I'll just like fall asleep. It'll be an easy way to go. I was like, jeez.
That's really dark, but yeah,
Yeah.
it's
So if you want to
yeah.
look that up, it's pretty creepy because it's the guy that was who's on board. That was
He's okay with go-ins. I mean,
yeah, he was okay.
okay. Should we get into some of the specs, the specifications of the sub?
Yeah,
Okay, so we
there
kind of
aren't
touched on
many.
a few.
There
We
aren't
did touch on
many.
a few. Yeah, that was pretty basic. All right, so the Titan submersible was not like normal submersibles. It was experimental, very experimental, with many things, including the main hull. So the main hull, so the nose and like the tail end of the sub were made out of titanium, which is pretty common. Most subs or like submersibles, they're made from either titanium or steel, very lightweight, very strong materials. So the cap, like the nose and like the rear end were titanium, but then the main hull where they're all sitting was carbon fiber. So, and they thought about this and they're like, Stockton kind of explained it as like, be able to compress and I guess they're going down or whatever and be less stressful on the ship or on the submersible. But you look at it now and it's like, are you sure? Because if that's what failed, if they didn't catch a crack in it or something, if it didn't, yeah. Anyway, so yeah, so the actual material it was made out of was very experimental itself.
Did you see about the engineer, the whistleblower engineer person
We'll
then?
get
That
into it. Yeah.
okay, I was like, because like there's yeah.
Yep. So after the passengers were to enter, like we said, they were bolted in from the outside with 17 bolts. So like that's not even like a small number to get off quickly if you needed oxygen. Like this is like taking you a long time to even get out if they find you. So that's nuts too. In terms of size, the Titan is comparable to a minivan, offering limited space for passengers. The interior images from the Ocean Gate showcase, it shows like a metal tube-like structure where occupants can sit flat on the floor, resting against curved walls. So it's not even like comfortable. You're sitting with like you're leaning forward slightly in crisscross applesauce style.
The Simpson guy that went down there said that it was like peaceful.
Was
He said
it
he took
okay?
a nap. He's like it was like a he said it was spa like. He's like, yeah, it was really peaceful and it was kind of like a spa. Like I just fell asleep, took a nap. I slept most of the
Okay.
way down there, and I woke up. I would
Yeah.
be like hyperventilating, like
Yeah.
sucking all the oxygen out.
He is a different breed. We'll
Yeah.
say that. Different breed. Okay. And although there is minimal headroom and no chairs, overhead lighting is provided from Camper World. Movements and upright standing are restricted due to the confined space, and the vessel is equipped with basic amenities such as a few sandwiches, water, and a very rudimentary toilet with a window seat.
Of the Titanic.
Of the Titanic. So, in the event of an emergency, the Titan is equipped with safety mechanisms that facilitate its descent to the surface. So, like we said before, there's several ways they figured out to get to the surface quickly. That's the one thing they figured out. And some of these include like releasing sandbags, lead pipes, and there's even an inflatable balloon to help get them to the top faster. The design ensures that these features can be activated even if all occupants are incapacitated and, and prioritizing the safety of the submersible. So like it's designed to be like, even if they're all unconscious, they can still
Pop
get
back up. Yep.
up back up. They can find him. Ocean Gate had previously mentioned that the Titan was already completed. They've already completed like 50 test dives, so it'd done some work before this, including dives to the depth equivalent to that of the Titanic. These test dives took place in deep waters near the Bahamas and in a pressure chamber. So not like the actual Titanic in the cold water, but like, the
Yeah.
Bahamas.
Yeah. On
Fun
vacation. Write off.
vacation.
It's a write
Yeah.
off. It's a business expense.
There you go, just a multi-million-dollar business expense.
Yep.
Yay. All right, so here's some of the possible bad scenarios that they thought of and what the outcomes would have been. So there are multiple potential scenarios that could have occurred within the Titan, each presenting its own challenges, some of which include the possibilities of a power outage, fire, flooding, or entanglement. In the event of a fire, the subsystems would be compromised, and the crew may be exposed to toxic fumes that would render them unconscious. And if there was a flood, it could lead to a sudden and catastrophic implosion, which is what happened.
Which is what happened.
Yes. So the most positive outcome would involve a power loss. This would enable the vessel to resurface. In this scenario, the submersible would wait on the surface for search and rescue teams to find it, which, again, without GPS, it's like finding a
Hard.
needle in a haystack.
Yeah, but like, would it be easier for them to find them, not at the bottom of the ocean and just like,
Pop up somewhere random?
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah, the first thing I thought of when I started learning about this whole catastrophe or this whole disaster was, like they lost connection to the mothership an hour and 45 minutes in. I'm like, if you didn't think to resurface, like by pressing one of your buttons to release, like this balloon or whatever to get you to the surface when this happened, or like nearly after that, it almost had to have like imploded. So like I was pretty sure it imploded like a day after they announced it.
Oh, really?
I was pretty certain, because I'm like, why else would you still be down there unless like all of your like one type of safety mechanism failed? You dropped all your lead pipes, all your sandbags, you inflated your balloon, and it didn't work. That'd be like, to me, like what I thought happened was probably they like had a small fracture like in the carbon fiber, most likely, or in the connection between like where they connected the titanium to the carbon fiber. There's probably just like a small hairline fracture that as it got compressed, it somehow got larger and let in a small amount of water, and that just imploded it just in seconds.
Milliseconds.
Milliseconds, yeah.
Faster
Like,
than your brain can create and can do connections.
which is good in their case.
Yeah, very
Like,
good in their
very
case.
good. All right, so now we're going to go back to the timeline. So Monday, June 19th, US and Canadian ships and planes started swarming the area, some dropping sonobuoys that could monitor at the depth of 13,000 feet, or 4,000 meters. Officials have also asked commercial vessels for help. So basically everyone's like swarming to this area. All these different countries are sending their highest tech to try to find this submersible. They say at this time that if it was still found, the Titan was found, it would have between 70 and 96 hours of oxygen left, which is it's a whole day worth of like oxygen difference. So it's kind of a big gamble. Anyways, so Tuesday, June 20th, the morning, the family of the Dawood family, they confirmed that their 19-year-old son was on board. So that added to the tragedy. 10:50 a.m. on Tuesday, France says it'll help by employing another ship called the Atlante. Basically, it was a deep sea diving vessel.
It had like the arms, like the robotic arms.
Yes.
But that thing didn't get there until like Wednesday. Or like,
yeah,
so
that's
big help it was.
Yeah, I mean, eventually it did help, but like, yeah, it just takes forever to get to this part of the world.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right, so during the day, sounds were detected over several hours by Canadian Lockheed P-3, the Orion aircraft, and they heard knocking sounds at like 30-minute intervals. So yeah, at this point, like it gives them hope, when like they're hearing banging every 30 minutes.
But was it throughout the whole day, or was it just like it was like a few times, right?
It was for like a couple hours, I think.
I don't know. The media made it sound like they're like, it's them. They're making banging sounds. It's told, yeah. So the headlines made it sound like, whoa, but
Like
I
found it
think
like
it
they were
was a
looking
few
for it.
times.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know for sure. I thought it was like a couple hours, but it could have very well been just like a couple times.
Mm-hmm.
So Harding's friend, the explorer's friend, Nicholson, he says, and as it stands now, it would be a miracle if they're recovered alive. Because again, like getting down there and up with the like amount of time to have oxygen, it's very unlikely.
Yep.
So now we're getting into some shady business from OceanGate. So in January 2018, OceanGate's engineering team was about to hand over the craft, or Titan, to a new crew who would be responsible for ensuring the safety of its future passengers. Experts inside and outside the company were beginning to sound alarms. So OceanGate's director of marine operations, David Lockridge, started working on a report around that time, and according to court documents, ultimately producing a scathing document in which he said that the craft needed more testing and stressed the quote, the potential dangers to passengers of the Titan as the submersible reached extreme depths. So we could see like all the flaws they needed to figure out. 2 months later, OceanGate faced similarly concerned calls from more than 3 dozen people, including industry leaders, deep sea explorers, and oceanographers. They warned in a letter to Stockton that the company's experimental approach and decision to forego a traditional assessment could lead to potentially catastrophic problems with the Titanic mission. Mr. Lockridge reported in court records that he had urged the company to get the sub assessed, but that he had been told that OceanGate was, quote, unwilling to pay for such an assessment. Which I'm wondering if they even had the money, to be honest with you, if they spent it on something else.
They probably the vacation to the Bahamas.
Yes, that was a write-off. I mean,
oh yeah, it was right off. Yep, good point. Yep.
So after getting Mr. Lockridge's report, OceanGate filed a lawsuit against Lockridge in 2018, accusing him of sharing confidential information outside the company. So in the documents, Mr. Lockridge reported learning that the viewport that lets passengers see outside the craft was only certified to work in depths up to 1,300 meters, or about 4,300 feet.
And they got to go, what, 12,000 feet down there?
Yeah, about 13,000 feet. So this window very well could have been where the leak
That was the
happened.
thing that just snapped.
Yeah. Yep. So the Titanic was 4,000 meters, or about 13,000 feet below the ocean's surface. So, yeah. Quote, the paying passengers would not be aware and would not be informed of this experimental design.
Of course not.
Yep. So the meeting led OceanGate to fire Mr. Lockridge, according to court documents filed by both sides. So basically, like, Lockridge had a meeting with all these like high up OceanGate officials, and they're like, "Hey," he was like, "Hey, you need to fix this. You need to get this assessed. You need to fix all these issues before you start anything." And they're like, "Okay, cool." The next day, they fired him. Basically, they just kicked him out. That was great.
That's great.
So a little while before that, in February, a couple in Florida, Mr. and Mrs. Hagel, sued Mr. Rush, or Stockton Rush, saying that his company refused to refund them the $105,000 that they each paid to visit the Titanic in 2018. So, like, their story, I kind of heard from, I don't remember where I heard it from, but it was basically they were one of the first people that were supposed to go down to the Titanic on the Titan, and they paid this money to OceanGate, and they said, like, "Oh, if you change your mind, we'll refund you. Like, no questions asked, it'll be fine." Well, like, they kept, like, by the time they'd be like, "Okay, yeah, we'll have this sub ready to go down to the Titanic this day," they'd push that date back, and they'd be like, "Oh, we aren't going to give your money back yet. Like, it'll be fine, we'll fix it." And they kept going back and back and back, and then a few years later, by the time, like, I think it was 2021, they finally had things, like, ready to go, and the Hagels were like, "No, we don't want to go anymore. Give us our money back." And OceanGate was like, "No, no, no. You don't get your money back anymore." Yeah, so they actually filed a lawsuit against Stockton Rush, which actually just got dropped because he perished, and they're like, like, what are we gonna do? Like, sue
Who
a
are you
dead
gonna
guy?
sue? Yeah.
Yeah, so
Who's gonna show up to court? Yeah.
Yeah, so they unfortunately lost all their money. And another one that I heard of, another person that I saw like had issues with the ship was Josh Gates, who's from the Travel Channel, and I actually watch his shows a lot. He's a popular host on Discovery of Expedition Unknown. I think it used to be on Travel Channel, now it's on Discovery. And he actually, like, he went to go visit and like test out the Titan to like see if they could film an episode, like actually go into the Titanic, because he like loved this idea so much.
Mm-hmm.
And then he went on it, and like the time they went out to the site where they're going to launch it, and like the day that they were supposed to go, they had weather issues and something disconnected, and he got freaked out, obviously, and he was like, "I don't trust it." I think they went down like a few thousand feet, like it wasn't very far, or a few hundred feet, and then he was just like, "Nope, we're backing out." So he was even concerned.
You probably saw the game controller, like the fact that they were getting text messages on how to steer and where to go, that he was like, text
Just
messages.
kidding. Just kidding. Yeah, so I'm glad he didn't go, but yeah, those. So there's a lot of people that like would try to go out there,
Mm-hmm.
and got freaked out. obviously.
Yeah.
All right, so back to the timeline. On Wednesday, June 21st, during the day, U.S. Coast Guard, U.S. Navy, Canadian Coast Guard, and Ocean Gate Expeditions established a unified command to handle the search. So then around like 2 p.m. on Thursday, June 22nd, a debris field was found near the wreckage of the Titanic in the North Atlantic. And they found like the nose piece and like the end piece, the titanium pieces of the Titan. And they were basically like, yeah, this is it. And then around 3 p.m. on Thursday, they they announced that it was probably an implosion. That yeah, and there's basically no way they're going to find any bodies to recover.
No,
So
because they're like part of the ocean. Like they
yeah,
like an implosion like with this like a bomb is just pressure, right? Like
mm-hmm.
we think of a bomb as like fire. Like a bomb is just like a bunch of pressure like just
Mm-hmm.
flying out from like one like contained spot.
Mm-hmm.
So these people are the bomb
Mm-hmm.
basically, and so they explode at like the most pressure. So they
Mm-hmm.
just become like
No,
matter in the air. They just become physics. They're
yeah,
not they're not, yeah. So there's no bodies. There's nothing.
yeah, it's really weird to think about, but when
Mhm.
you actually like look at like some of the animations for how it could have gone, like yeah, there's no way there would have been anything left besides like goo if you find anything. Um,
Nothing. They're matter. They're nothing.
they matter.
They're
And
nothing.
nothing. And I did come across a couple of TikToks. One of them, I'll play the sound here in just a second, but it was like what they thought they picked up. So I think it was the U.S. Navy. I think picked up the sound of what they think was the implosion.
Okay, they knew about it on
Yeah, they
Sunday when it
did.
happened. The
Yeah, they did.
freaking like this is something that they're not going to talk about, but the US Navy picked up the implosion when it happened. They heard it
Yeah, they did.
and they knew it was an implosion and they still sent out the US Navy and the Coast Guard and the Canadian Coast Guard and the freaking stupid French robot that can go in the bottom of the ocean to this place to make up like this stupid search and rescue thing. And they knew that they imploded the whole time.
Yeah, they did. I think
They didn't share the
um,
information. They should have.
they should have. I think why they hid it though was what I understood
Makes
was
good
like
TV. I don't know.
it's because
That's probably why.
they didn't want people to really know like what they were like the technology that they have. Something about like they weren't
What?
like they didn't want to
I don't
release like what
buy
they tech.
that. I don't
I
buy
don't know.
that.
That's what I heard.
I
Um,
don't buy that. I don't buy that, like, that they, like, oh, we didn't want to release it because we didn't want anyone to freak out. And it's like, well, what's
I would have
worse, knowing
wasted.
that they're dead right away or just, like, being like, they're trapped at the bottom of the ocean, running out of air. Oh
Yeah.
no.
You know,
Like, yeah, no. Something's fishy with that. I don't get what happened. Something's fishy. I don't like it.
yeah. There's been like a apparently there's like some research going or like some investigation now going to see if their the polar prints or like their mothership had something to do with them getting lost. I don't know, like they're not saying anything yet, but they're under investigation right now to make sure like no foul play was happening from the
Interesting.
mothership. So that'll
Okay.
be interesting to see if something does come from that.
That would be.
But yeah, so here's the sound of the crack, they think, and the implosion. And it kind of so like the first thing you'll hear is like a loud pop, which is the crack, and
Hmm.
then a little while later there's the sound of the implosion, and it kind of echoes. So like it's yeah, so it kind of echoes. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So yeah, like echoes off the ocean for a while.
The
Um,
person with the video couldn't have, like, cut it, like, closer to the sound, you know? I was, like,
I
waiting there,
know, I
when
know.
is this
It's been
going
waiting
to
forever.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, it just is really weird to think about, like if the porthole did crack, and then just thinking about them freaking out for a few seconds there, or for like a second,
It
and, like alarms going off, and
I
then
don't think it was I don't even think that happened.
are you sure?
As soon as there's so much pressure,
Mhm.
Just think, they were an hour and 45 minutes into their 2-hour journey.
Mhm.
There's so much pressure down there. Like,
Mhm.
they were dead within a millisecond.
Yeah,
Instantaneous. As soon as that crack happened, instantaneous death.
most likely, yeah.
Definitely. It's science.
Well, it kind of depends too, like if it was all the way through when that first crack happened. But yeah, I don't know. We don't know for sure. We're never going to fully know. But yeah, it just makes me kind of upset that they wasted so much time and resource and money to get everybody out there to try to look for him. And then they're like, "Oh, just kidding. We knew they were dead
Yeah, like,
right away."
yeah, yeah, I don't know, because they had like press conferences and all this other
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah,
Hmm.
like it just, yeah, I'm like, why can't you just say up front?
Like they're gone. Sorry.
Yeah.
So the other thing too, like when I first heard about like the price of the ticket to go down there, um, obviously sticker shock, but in one of the interviews, Stockton was saying that like he was asked, "So how much money do you guys make off of these things, off these expeditions?" And he goes, "Nothing really."
I don't
So
believe that
the
either.
thing, I don't really believe that, but I'm also thinking about like all the cost of the gas to get out there because you're going for 2 days, right? To get
Mhm.
out to there, you're getting the ship, you're getting 2 days back. You know, you're getting the
I
sub.
guess, but I didn't know that boat gas costed like
Yeah,
$250,000.
I don't know. So I don't know cost of like gas. I don't know cost of hiring all these people to drive your mothership out there and everything.
I don't know. Hmm.
But yeah, I don't know. I just thought that was an interesting little tidbit from his interview. But yeah, so that was a long-winded thing explanation dive into the Titan disaster. Titan submersible disaster. Ray's applauding with her bell.
I hear that. Or it was an implosion.
You just giggled again. Thank you. All right, Wanderers. And like I said before, I'll leave all the links to all the TikToks and all the articles and interviews and everything that I found in the description if you guys want to check them out. All right, Wanderers. Thank you so much for listening to another Foolish Wanderers podcast. And we hope you enjoyed. And if you have any suggestions for future episodes, please feel free to email us at fwplisteners@gmail.com.
And as always, new episodes of the Foolish Wanderers podcast drop when they drop.
Hopefully
They
weekly, but
implode when they implode on wherever, Spotify, YouTube, iTunes, wherever you're getting your podcast from.
all right, Wanderers. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you guys next time.